Hey there, I'm Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel biting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, please smash the like button like you're Brandon Davies. You have consent, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please go ahead and knock that out while you're here. Let's get into it. Lots of interesting developments this weekend. We're going to touch on most of them by the time we're done. Maybe all of them. But I did want to start with the Big 12, where we have a three-way tie for first in the league standings between Kansas, Iowa State, and Kansas State. Raise your hand if you saw this coming. Kansas, sure. It's Bill Self and the Jayhawks. Nothing surprising about them sitting atop the league standings, even though Baylor was the preseason favorite. But the fact that it's Iowa State and Kansas State tied with Kansas atop the Big 12 standings is undeniably surprising relative to preseason expectations. Iowa State was picked 8th in the preseason Big 12 poll. That's 8 out of 10. Kansas State was picked to finish dead last, 10th in the Big 12. And maybe they'll still finish there. Long season and all that. But right now, Kansas State and Iowa State are a combined 26-3 overall. Both are, just like Kansas, 3-0 in the league. I've got Kansas 3rd in the top 25-1. Kansas State 7th. Iowa State 13th. Dead leg. What do you make of the top of the Big 12 standings right now?
All right, a few things. First of all, anyone listening, go back. We're, minute and a half into this podcast. Make sure my man didn't say camel biting instead of camel fighting. I might have heard camel biting, dodo birds, and leaky black. So maybe he's getting kinky with it. I don't know what that was all about. But I'm gonna need an audio fact check from my man GP there. Number 2, I was on the slopes on Saturday, so I was in and out of some hoop stuff. So as we get going with this episode, I did keep track, but I didn't watch these games closely. I was riding Killington here, getting some good spiritual time on the mountain. And the most, we're going to get to it later. I can't believe that Arizona lost to Washington State. So let's talk Big 12. But that one, to me, might be the most shocking result of the weekend here. Big 12 is starting to have some interesting separation. So Kansas continues to be the story we've talked about all season long, basically. Only one loss to Tennessee. It's now 3-0. Notable in that it was able to go on the road and win 2 straight games, but the games it won being Texas Tech last Tuesday and then getting the win at West Virginia. Not even really all that competitive on the road on Saturday. Both West Virginia and Texas Tech are not shaping up to be tournament teams, and we've mentioned on the pod previously. Big 12 rates as the best league, and Ken Palmett's had all of his teams within basically the top 50, and that is still the case as we talk here on Sunday night, January 8th. But West Virginia and Texas Tech both being 0-3 in the league, and I actually think they're going to be in some real danger of not making the tournament. I would list Texas Tech as a team whose tournament hopes haven't expired. I just don't think they're getting there. They don't have a win in the top 140 overall, and they're 0-3, and they didn't schedule well, and the opportunities they had in Maui, they lost those games there. So Mark Adams might be running out of time here. Yeah, if they were able to turn it around and go from 0-3 to 10-4 in the league, then we got a different situation. There's just nothing to indicate that's going to be the case whatsoever. So on the bottom end, I actually think we're starting to get some separation. We'll get to Baylor in just a second because obviously that's extremely notable. But yeah, let's have a coda on Kansas State because at 14-1 and 3-0 overall, Jerome Tang has hit the Tommy Lloyd phase of his debut as a head coach, a longtime assistant at one program, and at 20 years, 2 decades, right? It's the same path in that regard. Then they travel to get their first big time job as a head coach. And yes or no, Jerome Tang is your front runner for National Coach of the Year right now, GP.
Has to be right now. Yeah, you can make cases for a lot of different people, but I don't know how you would put anybody reasonably at the top of a ballot right now other than Jerome Tang. Again, first-year head coach, and inherited a program that only won 14 games last season, was picked to finish dead last in his league. And I can't speak for AP voters, but if you just look at the resume, it's hard not to have Kansas State in the top 10 right now.
You said you had him 7, right?
Yeah, I jumped them all the way up. It's one thing to beat West Virginia at home to get your first big win of the season, which is what Kansas State did last weekend. But when you back that, and think about this, I can't remember if I said it on this podcast or on, when I do a Tuesday hit with Seren Pretro in Kansas City. But at one point I said, listen, this could be a comeback to earth week for Kansas State because you got to go to Texas, you got to go to Baylor. If you're Jerome Tang, you'd split them. you take a split and be thrilled, but the likely scenario is that Kansas State goes 0-2 this week, and Kansas State instead went 2-0 in the week. Beat Texas at Texas 116-103. Beat Baylor at Baylor 97-95 in OT. I don't think anybody in the country's got 2 road wins that impressive on the resume so far. And when you're sitting here with the lone loss being a true road loss at Butler, Butler's not great, but it's a true road loss at Butler. The resume is strong. I've seen enough. I think this is one of the 10 best teams in the country right now.
Have to be rated as that in terms of how they're playing and reflected, certainly since they haven't lost since the Butler loss. They only have 1 loss, and that was in November. So they have gone since the start of December without a scratch and getting the wins at Texas. Again, dropping 116. That was a program record. K-State had never had 116 in a game until January 3, and then winning on the road against Baylor. Full transparency, I did not see that game. In fact, I think I tried to maybe I don't remember where I was, but I don't think that game was on regular TV, right? Was that an ESPN Plus special on Saturday?
Dude, we got to a point Saturday night, like late Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, where like Kansas and West Virginia and Kansas State and Baylor might have both been like streaming games. It was just weird to be streaming. Yes. I mean, like, it's the way of the future. It's the way of the present, I guess. But there were 2 significant Big 12 games at the same time that were streaming only options, I believe.
Yeah, and that goes back to in the preseason, they get put on streaming in part because Kansas State isn't expected to be that good. That game
That's right.
Not necessarily be such, a must-watch game, and then it turns into just exactly that. So yeah, 14-1. And for Baylor, I don't know, GP. I mentioned this a few shows ago. In terms of Baylor, it's just not going to be the Baylor we've known. Now lost 3 in a row. They're all the good teams. They're all the teams that we think are going to be in the tournament. At Iowa State, by 1 at home to TCU, by 2 at home in overtime to Kansas State. They are understandable losses, but you picked up 5. And as we've mentioned plenty of times on the pod, the other 2 are to Virginia on a neutral. It was a good game, but Virginia clearly deserved to win that game. And then they got destroyed on the road against Marquette, and then they also got destroyed against Iowa State. So having not seen how the game played out, I can't speak to to the ebb and flow of that, but it was an important spot there for the Bears, because now they do have to go on the road and play West Virginia in the league. In the league, there's just no gimmies there before they get Oklahoma State this weekend. I don't know where we'll go with Baylor. It feels like their range of outcomes over the next 2 months are pretty wide, because they've shown they can beat good teams. They have wins over UCLA and Gonzaga. Those are the 2 best. They beat Washington State, which beat Arizona. We are also, I think what this weekend showed wasn't a mega, tremendous weekend with stuff up and down the slate, but we did get some results that are providing perhaps a refreshing reminder of just how much our expectations can get tossed sideways. Just, stay on your toes here, because the idea that, the top 5 to 10 teams are just going to be borderline automatic gimmies for victories when they're playing sub 50 competition just isn't necessarily the case. So with that in mind, Baylor I still think this is a top. They're not playing like a top 25 team. I still think they will wind up as that, but you lose enough, you're in a tough league. You never know how a group of young men is going to respond to that. So for me, Parrish, over the next 2 weeks, I would list Baylor among my 4 or 5 teams to watch, just to see how they respond to this and if they get better, or if we might have a situation where it's just one of those teams that they're good, the record doesn't show it, they get to the tournament, but they stumble on the way there, and maybe they're going to be a danger no matter the seed next to their name. But I could see their outcome being anything between this point, I'd say a 3 seed is the ceiling. And if you told me they dropped down to like a 9, I wouldn't put it out of the question, just because they've really gotten handled in a couple of these games. So I don't think they can hit that elite top tier status kind of team later this season.
I'm not as concerned about Baylor as you are. I still have Baylor in the top 25 and 1. Like, they have beat, as you pointed out, they've beaten good teams. So it's not like some of these disappointing teams in the country, you go, man, they didn't beat anybody all year. Kentucky, we'll get to it. But this team has beaten UCLA, beaten Gonzaga, and the losses are literally all to teams I also have in the top 25 and 1. So for my purposes, that's still a rankable team. Keep in mind, Adam Flagler has missed some time. LJ Cryer has missed some time. And I know you didn't see much or any of the game, but, it went to overtime. That by definition means, one shot,
Did
one
it go to
stop.
just a genuine question. Did it go to overtime because it was a volleyball match, or did it go to overtime because Baylor needed to salvage it, or did Baylor...
Kansas State controlled most of the game. That's true. Okay. Kansas State controlled most of the game. But like you look at these last two losses, and they're losses. I'm not going to try to pretend they're wins. They're losses. But one of them's a 1-point loss, and the other one's an overtime loss. I mean, literally one stop or one make in both those games, and maybe you're 12-3 instead of sitting here at 10-5. So I'm not as concerned about them. I think now it is notable that, a Baylor team that was picked to win the Big 12 is 0-3 in the Big 12. That's a bullet point. No question. If you're building a news and notes graphic for Inside College Basketball, you put that on there. But to me, the real story from the weekend is Kansas State continuing to solidify itself as a legitimate Big 12 title contender. And I went and I wrote about this in Sunday morning's Top 25 and 1. If you missed it, you can check it out there. If you've read it, you're going to hear a lot of the same stuff again. But when you take a look at this Kansas State roster with fresh eyes, it shouldn't be like they've got good players. Sometimes you see a team's good and you go, I don't know why they're so good or why they keep winning. Like the players aren't, this doesn't really make sense. Maybe the coach is a magician. And clearly, I'm not trying to take away from what Jerome Tang is doing. What he is doing is amazing. He would be my, choice for coach of the year right now. But, think about because it's pretty clear everybody misevaluated Kansas State. The Big 12 coaches picked them last. I went and looked at our Big 12 preview. Literally every one of us, me, you, David Cobb, Cal Boone, Jerry Palm, picked Kansas State to finish last. Everybody misevaluated Kansas State. So how does that happen? Where does it start? It starts with Keontae Johnson. We didn't know what he was going to be. Nobody could reasonably guess. Nobody could reasonably assume he's going to be the same player he was 2 years ago. For people who don't know the backstory, he was at Florida, voted preseason SEC Player of the Year heading into the 2020-21 season, and then he collapses on 12-12-20 and a game against Florida State. And I know he stepped on the court one time last season, so he officially appeared in one game for Florida last season, but he never played again. He had not played since 12-12-20 heading into this season, and nearly 2 years away from basketball. So it was totally understandable to be unsure of what he was going to be. Totally reasonable to be skeptical that he'd be the same player. You know what? He's at least the same player and maybe better. He's averaging 18.8 points, 7-point rebounds, and shooting 41.7% from three. He's a Big 12 Player of the Year candidate right now, along with one of his teammates, Marquise Noel, and probably Jalen Wilson. So what if I'd have told you in the preseason, instead of, Keontae Johnson, the guy who collapsed at Florida and hasn't played in 2 years, he's going to Kansas State. What if I told you Keontae Johnson, the guy who was the preseason SEC Player of the Year heading into the 2020-21 season, is now at Kansas State, and he's going to be just as good, if not better, than he's ever been? Well, that changes things, all right? Now let's go to Marquise Noel. He's developed into one of the nation's best point guards. And I don't know if we could have saw this coming, but he is clearly one of the nation's best point guards right now. I'm assuming you saw this stat. It came from the king of ESPN stats and info, Jared Burson, on Saturday night. He tweeted that.
Does not work for ESPN as a reminder.
I know, but it's still the king of ESPN stats and info, as far as I'm concerned, and forever will be, whether he's got an office or not. So in Saturday's win against Baylor, Noel got 32 points, 14 assists. Earlier in the week against Texas, he got 36 points, 9 assists. Did you see this on Twitter? Okay. So Marquise Noel just became the third player in the past 10 seasons to get 65 plus points and 20 plus assists in any 2-game span. The other two, trivia time. It's trivia time. Who were the other two?
Say it one more time, please.
Only 3 players in the past 10 years have gotten at least 65 points and at least 20 assists, or I should phrase it the way he did. 65 plus points and 20 plus assists in any 2-game span. First 2 games, last 2 games, anything in the middle. Only 2 other players have done it.
Trae Young
is one of them. That's very good.
Last 10 seasons. Give me a conference.
If I give you the conference, it's going to give it away. And the
Ooh,
schools.
okay, hold on. Then I will say Nigel Williams-Goss.
No, not. Okay, I could give you the conference, but it's not even. This school's not even in that conference anymore.
John Morant.
John Morant.
Give it to me. Let's go. Did not swear. Didn't see it. Are you kidding me? The beard stuff broke on Thursday. Had to do that. Twitter was shut down for me from better part of 3 days. So I did not see that.
So the top of Kansas State's roster is Keontae Johnson and a dude who's doing things only John Morant and Trae Young have done in the past 10 years. Third leading scorer is Naquan Tomlin, JUCO All-American. Fourth leading scorer, Desi Sills. Started for an Arkansas team 2 years ago that made the Elite Eight. That's talent. Kansas State's got real players. And I don't think this is fluky. I think they're legitimately good. Now legitimately good can still have you finishing 7th in the Big 12. So I'm not ruling anything out, but I think sometimes you see teams get off to good starts or, hey, the first half of the season went really well, but I'm not so sure. I'm convinced. I've seen enough from Kansas State. I think they're legitimately good because Jerome Tang's doing an amazing job and because they've got legitimately high-level players at the top of that roster.
You listened to this podcast and you didn't think Nigel Williams-Goss would get referenced, but you were wrong. Iowa State also in the top of that. So before we transition to the rest of the weekend, let's touch on the Cyclones real quick here because they are putting on, a nice follow-up, sophomore season here for Otzelberger as a head coach and getting wins home against Baylor, at Oklahoma. Oklahoma, oh, by the way, gets the win at Texas Tech, and they were just aching for a good win. The Big 12 is going to get at least 6 into the tournament. It will be interesting to see how all this shakes out. Oklahoma might be the unsuspecting candidate in that mix there, but wins like it was able to get on Saturday, I think, are big. But yeah, Iowa State has beaten Oklahoma on the road, got that Wednesday, and then got the win over a TCU team that had not lost but since mid-November there, and that's obviously a big one. So they continue to be just a pugnacious defensive unit, and going on the road and spoiling TCU's weekend here, which, by the way, we're not getting out of this podcast before we're picking the title game. So just remind me before we get out of here on that. Good on them for doing it. I did look up their numbers right now from a tournament perspective. So right now, Iowa State sitting top 20 in the net rankings. It's 3-2 in quad 1, 2-0 in quad 2. Doesn't have a bad loss yet. Pretty sure I mentioned this on a recent episode. I think I said it in these terms. Iowa State could be a team that takes on a lot of losses, but their seed winds up being better than you think it might be, just looking at the record at first glance. Maybe it won't be that. Maybe Iowa State will be able to maintain top 3 status in a really, really good league, the best league in America, and push its way to one of its best seeds that it's had in the past 20, 25 years. I do think that's possible. That's on the table. Next is at home against a Texas Tech team. You got to figure Iowa State will probably never say anything. Never say never in this league. But if it gets there, it's going to be 4-0 before tremendous, just big time game at Kansas this weekend. But no, Otzelberger is getting it done, and he's getting it done, having needed to reshape a roster 2 seasons in a row, and kind of going against that trope you've talked about here this season, where the excuses for early coaches in their early years, year 1, year 2, because of roster turnover. Well, there are guys that are not even proving to be exceptions to the rule, but just kind of proving the trope to be often inaccurate, and they continue to be good. Gabe Kalsher has played well alongside Caleb Grill, who's had a couple of really nice games this season. And yeah, Iowa State's going to go to the tournament in back-to-back years. And just on this point real quick, you had when K-State finally got rid of Weber, and that was like 4 or 5 years coming. I get a super nice guy, really, really good coach, but the fan base was wanting that for a number of years. And with Iowa State, it was, pining for a change. And sometimes the ones that care the most can wind up being right about these things. And those changes were made, and look what's happened with both of those spots. What's going on in Ames, and then down in the Little Apple in Manhattan, Kansas. They've got new guys in charge, and the programs are ascending, and they are relevant. And those are 2 top 15 teams right now.
Yeah, like I said, I've got Kansas State 7th. I've got Iowa State 13th. The Cyclones are 3-2 in quadrant 1, 2-0 in quadrant 2. So 5-2 in the first 2 quadrants, no additional losses. That absolutely is the resume. As somebody who looks at this stuff every morning, that is the resume of a top 15 team. And, we'll see where it goes from here. But quite clearly, Kansas State and Iowa State, along with Kansas, which is there every year, turning into the stories out of the Big 12 and some of the best stories in college basketball. Moving on, Kentucky, got smashed again, this time by Alabama. According to Twitter, UK fans would like a new coach. We'll get into that next, but first, a word from our partners.
We need a pecking order inside, gentlemen, so we have control on the outside.
Mike, it's gonna be some payback.
I have an idea. It's gonna sting, but it will work.
I'm gonna trust you on this.
The inmates are running the asylum, and you're giving up the key.
This war is what I'm trying to stop. If I say I'm gonna do a thing, I think it's done.
So Kentucky got smashed again this weekend, this time by Alabama. The final score, Crimson Tide 78, UK Wildcats 52. It's an embarrassing performance from the preseason SEC favorite. UK is down to 44th in the net. Wildcats are 0-4 in quadrant 1 and just 1-5 total in the first 2 quadrants. By my count, 77 different schools already have at least one quadrant 1 win. 77.
You just say 77 schools. Different schools is redundant, just so you know. There wouldn't be 77 of the same schools.
Oh, I'm glad you did that, because now I've been biting my tongue every time you say these little things that drive me crazy. But now I'm going to be freed up to just.
I want you to say them.
I'll send you an entire email. Wildcats are 0-4 in quadrant 1, 1-5 in the first 2 quadrants. By my count, 77 schools have at least one quadrant 1 win. Kentucky still has 0. And the only quadrant 2 win the Wildcats have is a neutral court win over Michigan in London, which means Kentucky has 0 quadrant 1 or quadrant 2 wins in the United States of America. Here's the question. Is Kentucky going to make the NCAA tournament? Yes or no?
Yes, I'll say yes. And confidence level is draining on this. Draining.
Dude,
they lost 78-52.
And I know this is a cliche that people say all the time, but in this case, it's actually true. And it wasn't even that close.
78. Please tell me the story of this game.
Okay, it was kind of competitive at first, and then about midway through the first half, Alabama started pulling away. And then as the first half unfolded, they were really pulling away. And then the second half started, and they just beat their brains in. They were up like 30 million, it felt like. I mean, it was I actually, like, there's different kinds of sadness. Like you watch a football player collapse on a field. That's one level of sadness. You watch a basketball program just get embarrassed. That's a different kind of sadness. But I mean this sincere. It's kind of sad watching Kentucky basketball / John Calipari just get their brains beat in over and over again. I mentioned 0-4 in quadrant 1 games. None of the games have been close. They've lost all of them by double digits by an average of 16.5 points. Like we look at some of these other teams, Illinois, Maryland, they're good for a little bit, then they're bad, and then they're good again. And it's like, I don't know what's going on. Kentucky's been bad all season. There's never been a moment where you went, oh man, this Kentucky team looks really, really good. And I'm with you. Let the record show. If I had to bet something significant on Kentucky making the NCAA tournament, I would bet that Kentucky will. But for whatever it's worth, KenPom now has UK. After being ranked number 1 in the entire country at KenPom in the preseason, KenPom now has UK entering the SEC tournament 19-12 overall, 10-8 in the SEC. That's pushing it.
That will not get it done. That's a good league. That's not going to get it done. They were 1 in the preseason. Now down to 20, 25, man. Alabama hasn't been this good. Good for Bama. Best start since 01-02. So good on them. It's just, and you had the Texas coaching candidates story, and I didn't listen to Friday's pod. I would have to think that you talked about that as well on the pod, so we won't do that segment all over again. But I know you put Cal on that.
Yeah, we talked about it extensively, arguably longer than we should have. And by we I mean me.
No, I know. Listen, I know you got a couple words in, then it was Boone for 15 minutes. Don't
I actually went back because I wanted to hear how I said something, and I went back and I was like, Jesus Christ, I should just shut up. That's a true thing that happened.
Would you just shut up already?
I wanted
Not talking me.
I wanted me to shut up. I was listening to me and I was going, all right, that's enough. You know what?
I've had enough of myself.
That's enough. That's enough.
Oh my God, it's too funny. Thank you for the belly laugh. Oscar Tshiebwe scores 4 points. What?
Oh, he had 0, I think, in the first half.
4 point. My takeaway from this result, because I did check out the box score like earlier today. It's like every time Kentucky fans think they're hitting a new low, they're finding another one. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago. There's a portion of the fan base that's like fed up. I think they're just getting more going over to that army. They're just more by the game there. To get destroyed like this, it's not like you're losing competitively. 78-52, 52 on the road, 52. The offense remains broken. All credit to Bama for having its best start in more than 20 years, and that's a team that can get to a 1 seed. They're super fun. Brandon Miller, they've got the best freshman in the country. They've been awesome. They'll continue to be awesome. They've got a really interesting road game coming up Wednesday against Arkansas. But Kentucky, what? Nothing. I don't know. I think they're going to make the tournament, but I picked this team to win the damn thing this year. I picked them to win the national championship in 2023. I'm going to be wrong. I'm going to be wrong. I completely whiffed on that one. But the fact that they're continuing to just to fail, I don't know. I thought Bama would win or win close, but 78-52 is just yikes.
It was yikes. And I'm not overstating it. It was worse if you saw it. Like 78-52 sounds awful. I got you. It was worse if you watch, because it was like a 30-point game for most of the second half is what it felt like. And it was just sort of, I mean, even you just look over there at the bench, it's just like Cal sitting there getting his brains beat in. And like, this team should be good. Like everybody now is like, well, I don't know why anybody's surprised that this team's struggling. You know, they don't have good players. Yes, they do have good players. They've got the reigning national player of the year. They've got multiple 5-stars, / first round draft picks. They've got good enough players. Maybe not. It's not the best John Calipari Kentucky roster ever, but they've got good enough players to be good. I mean, unless you think every media member, every SEC coach, and every computer that evaluates teams had this wrong. I mean, everybody was media, SEC coaches, literally number one at KenPom. Every way you could evaluate teams heading into a season suggested this Kentucky team was supposed to not only be good, but like national championship level good. And like I said, they've been bad all season. And what's wild is that, you mentioned that some Kentucky fans are out. Just in the middle of the game multiple times, I just went to Twitter and did a Twitter search for John Calipari or for Calipari and just hit latest. And it's like, it's really ugly. He's lost the in-state media. He's lost the fan base. And I'm not saying it's impossible to get it back, but as we've talked about before, it's very difficult to get it back. For some context, Tubby Smith coached at Kentucky for 10 years, won 1 national championship, just like Cal. Never missed the NCAA tournament. Never missed it, not once. And got ran out of town. Ran off to Minnesota. John Calipari's on the verge of maybe missing the tournament for the 3rd time in 14 years. And for the 2nd time in the past 3 years. And in between those 2 times would be a first-round loss to St. Peter's. That's not cutting it. He could enter, in theory, next season with 0 NCAA tournament wins since 2019. What? And he probably, unless he can find a job that he's willing to take somewhere else, he probably will enter next season as the Kentucky coach, because his buyout after the season is still in excess of $40 million.
I was going to have you ask. I did not know what it was. I would have guessed like 20. It's 40 million. Okay.
What I read from the Lexington newspaper, Herald Leader, is even after this season, it's still in excess of $40 million.
He's not going anywhere. They got the number one class in the country coming in. Kentucky fans again.
But how about this?
They could lose every game the rest of the season, 78-52. He's not leaving the program. That's not happening.
Well, how about this? That's how out the Kentucky fans base seems to be on him. They know they've got a historically great recruiting class on the way, and they don't care because they're tired of it. They hear it every year. Oh, great.
That's a valid stance to have, by the way.
Yeah.
We're sick of the song and dance. We get this every year.
Right.
What does it mean? What are we heading toward?
And by the way, he could take that recruiting class anywhere he goes. He did it when he was at Memphis.
Yeah,
John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Eric Bledsoe. I think the only one he had that he didn't take was Xavier Henry, who ended up going to Kansas instead. But yeah, he could take that. He could take that recruiting class wherever he wants. And I don't care if they're signed to letters of intent. They'll get out of those if they want to. So last week the question was like, would he leave for Texas? And I had some Kentucky. I don't even know if they were Kentucky fans. I think they were just other fans. And on Twitter, it was like, well, the Kentucky coach would never leave for Texas. Dude, the Kentucky coach left for Minnesota. When it gets ugly, you'll leave if you can. And so the question was, would he take Texas if offered? I think he would at this point.
That seems weird to me, by the way, that visual. I'm not saying it could never happen. That's weird.
How about this? I don't want to speak for John. If I were John Calipari and Texas offered me, the $8 or $9 million a year I'm making right now to just get a fresh fan base and a fresh set of expectations, I would take the Texas job, take the recruiting class, and then try to stick it in Kentucky's face. But here's the bigger question. If you're Texas, you want to pay $9 million in 2023 for John Calipari?
Don't think so. I thought about that.
I'm not sure I would.
I don't think so. By the way, you asked if they'd get to the tournament. Last time Kentucky lost this bad was the last time. Well, not the last time. In one of the years they didn't make the tournament. So they lost Nerlens Noel in that 12-13 season in that game against Florida. They lost that game 69-52. The next game they faced was Tennessee on the road. Wasn't a good Tennessee team. They lost by 30 points. So, don't know if it's Snowman that history will repeat itself. But the largest true road loss by margin for UK since that year. They did not go to the tournament. They famously lost in the first round to Bobby Moe in the NIT.
And even that Kentucky team missing the NCAA tournament, like the other two times John's missed the NCAA tournament that year, with Nerlens, their best player got hurt, and then it just spiraled. They were not missing the NCAA tournament if Nerlens Noel didn't get hurt. So there was an explanation. Why did Kentucky spiral and miss the tournament? Because their best player got hurt. And then the COVID year, we've explained that. I don't think it's a coincidence Kentucky and Duke both missed the NCAA tournament that season. They were heavily reliant on first-year players, freshmen, and they didn't have a normal summer, normal preseason, normal non-con, all that stuff, and it was hard to overcome. I've talked to Kentucky coaches and Duke coaches about that very thing, and absolutely they say us not having normal summers and normal preseason impacted us because we were so reliant on first-year guys. So there's an explanation for Kentucky missing it the first time under John and an explanation for Kentucky missing it the second time under John. I'm not sure there's a good explanation for this Kentucky team missing it, if it does, except for, John Calipari took a team that was built to win big and didn't win enough with it. Next up, South Carolina on Tuesday. That's a good opportunity to get right. They just lost by like 40 to Tennessee. And then this is going to be tough. You got to go to Tennessee next Saturday, Thompson Bowling Arena. So looking like a 1-1 week for John Calipari's Wildcats. But as always, we'll see. Let's move on. Elsewhere around the sport, Tommy Lloyd took his first loss ever inside the McKell Center.
What happened? Just let's stop there. What the hell?
Pac-12 Network. Pac-12 Network, brother.
You didn't even see it. We're both in the dark.
No idea what
happened.
happened. Not even sure it happened.
Not either of us. Okay.
I read that it happened, but I'm not sure. I can't speak to it.
Is this it's a Pac-12 Network deep fake? Is that what we're going with?
What if it could be? I don't know. Dude, somebody tweeted me or somebody else. Maybe it wasn't at me. I saw it. And this was hilarious to me. They said, I have never been able to get Pac-12 Network on my television, but I just realized I can get it on my refrigerator.
No.
They have a screen on their fridge, like it's high technology. And so they were watching Pac-12 Network on their fridge because that's the only place they couldn't get it on their TV, but they could get it on their fridge. Imagine that.
That's cold.
So Tommy Lloyd took his first loss ever inside the McKell Center. Arizona lost to Washington State on Saturday. New Mexico, that was the last undefeated team in the sport. Now they're on a 2-game losing streak, lost again. Indiana lost again this weekend, this time to Northwestern at home. Big Ten favorite is now 3-5 in its past 8 games. Internet is way out in the Hoosier State right now. I hope they get that fixed, at some point really, really soon. UConn snapped a 2-game losing streak with a win over Creighton. Illinois backed a loss with the win for the 4th straight time this season. Beat Wisconsin by 10. Illinois has alternated wins and losses for more than a month. Beat Syracuse, lost to Maryland, beat Texas, then lost to Penn State, beat Alabama A&M, then lost to Missouri, then beat Bethune-Cookman, then lost to Northwestern, then beat Wisconsin. You got any thoughts on any of those games or anything else that happened this weekend?
Let's go back to Washington State, Arizona, because it's a top 5 shocking score of the season. It was Washington State's 18th win in the history of its program against Arizona. 18 times. What? It was the first time the school ever won on the road against the top 5 team. Kyle Smith, good on you, man. Washington State had lost 37 games against top 5 opponents on the road. And the last time they beat a top five opponent per Wazoo was in '83 when they won at home against 4th ranked UCLA, long before the Mick Cronin era. Arizona was held to a season low 61, and it only got 2 bench points. So great win for Washington State. Barring a midseason flip, it's not going to be a tournament team. That's a seed line knock.
Oh no, we got
seed
one.
Line knock season is back. It's a seed line knock, and you know it. So, but then again, I didn't see it. You didn't see it.
No, nobody saw it except nobody saw it.
Either, so.
Nobody saw it except that dude with that really fancy refrigerator. That's it.
You're going up to drop a few cubes in the cup, and you're checking out the what's going on heading in the under 12.
Hey, baby, can you get the cheese dip out and check on that Arizona score for me while you're there? Hey, buddy, could you grab me a beer? And while you're over there, has Arizona made a run to get back into this thing? Check that out for me. That's the way people are living these days in 2023. It's a wild situation.
On the Indiana note, I was up in my old stomping grounds of VT on Thursday night when Indiana was playing Iowa. It was one of my old buddies. He's from Vermont, but his parents went to IU, so he happens to be a huge Indiana fan. He's trying to goad me into tweeting about Indiana. I got no desire. I'm not going to tweet about it whatsoever. So this is karma, because they blew it that night, and now they lost at home to Northwestern. They're 10-5, dude. They're
3-5 in their past 8.
And they I know they're not fully healthy, but come on, man. Indiana is approaching. It's not there. Like Michigan lost to Michigan State. I think Michigan's NCAA tournament fate is nearly sealed. I just don't think Michigan's going to the tournament. Villanova, they're at-large hopes, I think, officially expired when they couldn't beat Xavier at home. They're not going to have enough. And Texas Tech's another one of those kind of teams there. Indiana, preseason Big Ten favorite, flirting with some real disaster here. This is not going the way it has been going for Iowa State and K-State, to name 2, where you made a coaching change. They wanted a coaching change. They started fine enough. They've got the road win against Xavier, and that's going to carry tremendous mileage. But there's just a lot of work to be done, and internet's out.
Yeah.
No good reason to tweet about the Hoosiers. That's for damn sure. They blowing that lead. My gosh, I did watch that game Thursday night. I watched the Indiana-Iowa game, and to see them just soil that lead away. I think they led by 21 at the greatest margin there on the road at Carver Hawkeye, which wasn't even sold out. And then to come back and Northwestern, good on you, 12-3. Okay, getting somewhere. Back-to-back wins, Illinois, Indiana. I think I saw a graphic. They hadn't done this in forever, beaten both these teams in the same season. I think I saw that. So Chris Collins in a hot seat season. We actually have 2 coaches right now, hot seat seasons, and they're getting it done. Chris Collins, Northwestern, 12-3.
Jeff Capel.
Make it 3 coaches. 3 coaches. Because Jeff Capel did not win this weekend. Who did? Brad Brownell. The Clemson Tigers are the only undefeated team in ACC play. Credit to Clemson. They go on the road. They've won 5 straight, 3 of those being on the road. Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh. By the way, Virginia Tech, they're going in the wrong direction. Have lost 4 in a row after an 11-1 start. Again, keep us on our toes here. It was a little bit of a quirky weekend in terms of the results we had there. So, Indiana fans, I know you have reached the why can't we just have nice things stage of the season. I get that. And you're not fully healthy. You asked me if Kentucky would make the tournament. I said yes. I'm asking you, will Indiana make the tournament?
Yes.
I will also say yes. But when are they getting Xavier Johnson back? Jalen Hood-Schifino's
he went big on Sunday. He was great.
Do you
remember who the first person? Do you remember the first person ever to tell you this guy's a 4-star prospect? But I watched him work out, and I think by the end of this, he's going to be a 5-star prospect, and he's going to be great.
I think that was Adam Finkelstein.
That was me. It was not Finkelstein. That was me. I discovered Jalen Hood-Schifino.
Oh man, I will agree with you. I'll say Indiana gets there. If you're watching live, thank you again. Give us your input. Do you think Kentucky, Indiana, both, one or the other, identify which or neither are dancing come March?
On that note, as you were going through this, it just sort of popped in my head. Big 12, preseason favorite, Baylor, 0-3 in the league. Big 10, preseason favorite, Indiana, struggling. SEC, preseason favorite, Kentucky, struggling. Big East, preseason favorite, Creighton, not great.
Yeah.
Atlantic Coast Conference, preseason favorite, North Carolina, not ranked. The only one where it's kind of like the 2 teams that were supposed to be good at the top are good, UCLA and Arizona, Pac-12. Pac-12 sort of holding up at the top. But you can, I think, say in the top 6 conferences in America, the preseason favorites in 5 of them are really underperforming.
I think that might have to be a court report section right there this week.
Take it.
Unless you want it from Monday's top 25 and 1 lead.
The top 25 and 1 lead on Monday is going to be me explaining with a lot of data why anybody insisting this team has to be number 1 doesn't know what they're talking about. We have.
I thought we covered this last Wednesday. Take all 363 teams, put them whatever order you want.
It's not 363, but I do think you have to have your top 3 right now. Let me help the AP voters right now. You guys are listening.
Some of them have checked out. They're done, but maybe there's a few hangers on that you're going to be able to steer them the right way.
Your top 3 have to be Houston, Purdue, Kansas in some order, and it really can be in any order that you want. I love Kansas fans. I love them. But boy, they need to stop telling me it's stupid to not have Kansas ranked number 1, because it's not stupid to not have Kansas ranked number 1. And I say this as somebody who thinks Kansas is great. But if you could make an argument for any of those 3 schools to be number 1. The argument for Houston is that Houston is number 1 in just about every computer. The number 1 in the betting markets. Houston is technically, last time I checked the betting markets, and certainly most of the computers, the favorite to win the national championship. So there's your argument for Houston. Just trust the computers and stop worrying about their lack of quality wins, because they don't get the opportunities that a Big 12 team or a Big 10 team's going to get. The argument for Purdue's got, I believe, 5 wins over top 25 KenPom teams. That's more than anybody else in the country. So Purdue, you could argue, has more good wins than anybody, at least based on that way of defining good wins. They beat more top 25 KenPom teams than anybody else. That's true. And then the argument for Kansas is that it's Kansas, it's Bill Self, and this is true. Kansas has more quad 1 wins than anybody else. So I don't care if you have it Kansas 1, Houston 2, Purdue 3, or Purdue 1, Kansas 2, Houston 3, or any order of those 3 schools. 1, 2, 3 is totally defensible. I just wish that everybody else would understand the order of Houston, Purdue, Kansas is also very easy to defend.
Purdue bouncing back the way it did, just, key to its reputation as arguably the number one team. And, Zach Edey, he had 30 and 13. Purdue just completely just flipped it in the second half on Penn State. I did watch the majority of that game on Sunday night. They outscored them 45-26 in the second half at the Palestra. I did see, I think Katz tweeted that Mike Shrewsbury, he's going to get Penn State to play at that building every year, at least one game, and it'll be a conference game. It'll be a home game, even though they got to travel for it. I think it's awesome, and it looked great. Purdue won the game, and for them to bounce back with wins over Ohio State and Penn State after taking the loss to Rutgers, I actually thought was pretty important. Purdue, by the way, is 14-1 in its last 15 games against Penn State. On that note, sticking in the league real quick, GP, Iowa is maybe steadying itself. It certainly did what it needed to do to kind of steer the ship in a better direction. 10-6 overall, but getting the home win, coming back from 21 down to beat Indiana Thursday, and then winning at Rutgers on Sunday by 11 points. A significant one. I think a very significant one after, they had a horrendous Eastern Illinois loss, and we'll see. Chris Murray continues to look tremendous. The only other one I have here for notable stuff, and then take it away, I just thought Auburn got a credibility-boosting victory.
Sure.
Winning by 13 at home over Arkansas. I don't have it up in front of me. I was looking earlier. I think that is Auburn's first top 50 win of the year. I don't think they had actually had a quality win to this point. So sure, it wasn't on the road, whatever. You're at home, you're playing an Arkansas team that's not at full strength, but it's going to go to the tournament. It's really, really good. So credit to Bruce Pearl's Tigers. They needed one to kind of validate some of their preseason hype, and they finally got it.
Yeah, that was Auburn's first win over a top 50 KenPom team. They've also got wins over Florida, 57, Northwestern, 52. But if you draw the line at 50, Auburn's first win over a top 50 KenPom team did come over Arkansas this weekend. On Northwestern, real quick, because like you mentioned, 12-3 overall, 2-2 in quadrant 1, 2-1 in quadrant 2, so 4-3 in the first two quadrants, 0 additional losses. That's like on my top 25 and 1 radar. Northwestern's putting together a pretty solid resume. So, I always keep a list of like others that I need to pay attention to, and Northwestern has now made its way to that list. So it was a eventful, fun weekend of college basketball. Now we look ahead to the next couple of nights before we talk to you again on Wednesday. Nothing meaningful on Monday night because of the college football playoff game, which is TCU Georgia for the national championships. Let's stop here for a second, dead leg. Georgia minus 12.5. Put this in the final 4-1. This is going to count.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. So I meant to, because I did not get the picks to you in time on Friday. I didn't want to, so I woke up early, trying to make first chair, but I did a few runs. I think more than a few runs. I stopped for lunch. I go into the lodge and I'm like, damn it. I didn't, because I didn't want to text you. I didn't want to blow up your phone at like 7:40 in the morning and send you on the group text. I didn't want to wake people up. You're on Central Time.
You ain't waking me up at 7:40 in the morning.
You 7:40 Eastern, 6:40 Central. I don't know.
I'm up at 6:30 every morning.
I didn't want to wake folks, so I forgot. I did pick all of the games. No, did you have my record? Did you know what? Did you balance that? I picked all of the Final Four and one.
It's in the doc that Parrish cannot access right now.
I'm locked out of it. I'm locked out of that thing forever.
But you guys are tied again.
Ooh.
How did we? So we each went what? I'm gonna say 3 and 2.
3 again. 3, 1 and 1.
Oh, what pushed?
The Creighton game, I believe.
Creighton UConn.
Yep.
Okay. Creighton UConn. Oh man. Yeah, I wanted to get that to you in time for the show on Friday, so it might be for missing that just by about, I think, 20 minutes or so. But I did send in the picks. Yes, let's add the title game to the final 4-1. 12.5.
Georgia minus 12.5.
I picked Georgia to cover, and I picked TCU not to cover in the semis. I'm going to do it again, GP. I'm going to say Georgia wins and covers.
Oh, boy.
I am.
You know what I'm going to say.
Oh, gosh.
I'm a horned frog. Look at me. Look at me. I'm a horned frog. I'm I'm a Horned Frog. TCU plus the points. People have been counting out TCU every week of the whole season.
Let's pick scores.
I'm a Horned Frog.
I'll say Georgia 38, TCU 17.
I'm going to go Georgia. I wish I had the total. Let me see what the total is real quick so I can base my expert pick off of that. See what they've made this total.
I'm putting the total at 55.
Total is 63 right now.
Total 63. Okay. I'm going to go Georgia 34. TCU 24.
That's in the number.
34-24. That's the official Horned Frog. That's the official pick.
It's too close to Sun Devil.
No, but that's the thing. Horned Frogs are very close to Sun Devils. I don't think people know that. Yes, they are. People don't realize that.
You know what? You are correct. A lot of people do not.
People don't know that. People don't know that. Like Horned Frog and a Sun Devil, they're cousins. They're not brothers, but they're cousins.
What do we got?
Cousins. Not great, really, either. Michigan State at Wisconsin.
I'm intrigued.
My guy Commander King, he's in the YouTube comments. Love Commander King. We have a direct message Instagram relationship. Me and Commander King.
Okay.
he's the only person I talk to.
No, incorrect. Well, who else was in your DMs? Some woman from Vegas. Your wife was like, "Who is this?" Some woman trying to sell you edibles in Vegas. I believe she was in your DM.
No, she was trying to return my passport to me. But when I started trying to look her up to see who I'm dealing with here, it was like this woman's got my passport, and if I want to buy edible cookies,
there you go.
She's the hookup. So Commander King, he made this point. He said, it's sort of wild. We're 2 months into the season. And like Michigan State's like kind of good, but kind of like just off the radar. Like he said, you guys haven't talked about Michigan State at all this season, and we really haven't.
I mean, what do you want from us?
We
opened the season with one of the biggest games, and if they can get it going, I guess we will. I don't know. Wisconsin
they've been just good enough to make us not have to do shows going, what's wrong with Michigan State?
Yeah.
And just not good enough to make us, reasonably not
they go on
to talk about.
They go on the road. They win Tuesday night at Wisconsin. We lead the show with them. They'll be 12-4 and 7-game winning streak at that point. Maybe that's good enough. I don't know. GP can decide, but I'm putting it out there.
Texas Tech at Iowa State is also Tuesday night. See if the Cyclones can keep this going or if Texas Tech can get a big road win. And then North Carolina at Virginia. That's the biggest game of the night. UNC quietly 6-1 in its past 7 games.
It's reputation adjusting opportunity for Carolina if it can go and win at Virginia. Dubious to think it'll happen though. You missed one, by the way.
What's the other? What did I miss?
Illinois is going to try and walk into Pinnacle.
Oh my God.
I know. And how about this? Illinois is going to try and walk into Pinnacle Bank on Tuesday night. And as GP mentioned, 35 minutes ago, alternating results, which means it's due for a loss.
I know, it's tough.
It's due for the loss at Pinnacle Bank.
Oh, man, if Illinois loses, it's so funny how wild, how Illinois fans go from tweeting you every day telling you how stupid you are to you just don't hear about you don't hear a thing from them anymore.
Anyone locate Tom Fornelli on this planet?
I don't even think Tom Fornelli's still alive.
Oh, no.
I think we lost him. I think we lost Fornelli.
Nice win over the weekend, though, Illinois. Got it done against Bucky. So there we go. Hey, it's great to be back. Hope you had a good one on Friday.
It's good to have. Oh, God. You don't even know what happened on Friday. TSA broke my mic again. So I had to hold my mic, this big mic, I had to hold it the entire time like I was Trent Reznor or something. And well, that's who I picture holding a mic. Trent Reznor Trent Reznor always held the mic like this.
Okay, yeah, no, you know what? Valid. Yeah. As long as you have the rock going. So you told yourself to shut the heck up.
Yeah.
And the whole time you're still.
I was like Trent Reznor. I was holding the mic, and so I just TSA broke my mic again. I have ordered 2 brand new mics, 2. I have 2 on the way. But in the meantime, check this out. It's duct taped together. Oh,
You know what?
Knock my tooth out.
Did you just first of all, you just bust yourself in the face with a microphone.
I think I just knocked my. What if I done knocked my tooth out?
No.
And then suddenly I got to go on TV. I got 14 stitches above my eye, a knocked out tooth. What in the world am I doing?
Being a rock star, it's not as easy as it looks.
How does Trent Reznor still have all his teeth? I wonder. I wonder how Trent Reznor still has all his teeth.
What a moment!
I got this thing duct tape. It's ready to go.
It does.
TSA, if you tear this apart tomorrow, guys are rough with my stuff. Dead leg. Here's what I did.
Genuine question: why don't you just like put it in the carry-on so they don't have to do that?
I am team no carry-on. Team check everything.
Not even the littlest bag at your feet.
I have a one shoulder strap computer bag. That's it. I check everything. I'm team check everything.
All right. Listen, I can't fault you. There are pros and cons to both. We're not getting into this debate right now at the end of this on a Sunday night, but you just would have saved yourself such a headache. That's all.
I would rather my stuff get broken than have to carry it with me. I like to check my bags and just relax. I'm in relax mode once I get through TSA.
You're the dream. This is what the TSA wants. They want people like you. Break my stuff. I don't care as long as I don't have to bring it on the plane. Just break it.
Well, let me tell you what I did because I set a trap for him this time. I had my super glued.
Hold on. He's now elevating the schemes. Just so we're clear, he now has schemes.
So I
took to the airport with schemes.
So I took my Gorilla Glued mic, and it was very fragile, but it was intact by Gorilla Glue, and I wrapped it in a T-shirt coming home from New York last Thursday because I was like, okay, if this thing is still wrapped in this thing should still be wrapped in a T-shirt when I get it back. Got home, opened up my bag, not in a T-shirt anymore, and torn apart. Okay.
It's like they were searching for some edible cookies. I think that's what was going on there.
I don't travel with edible cookies. You think I'm trying to end up?
I'm not saying. I'm just saying that's the kind of thing they would be doing if they were looking for that kind of paraphernalia.
So this time I've now got duct tape. So we're gonna see. We can give them one more chance.
I think they're gonna take that as a challenge. That's all.
If they break this thing, if I get to my hotel room tomorrow it'd be demoralizing. Trent Reznor would grab it like this. Head like a hoe. Black as your soul.
There you go.
I feel like it's time to go.
It definitely is.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for listening to Eye on College Basketball Podcast. Hey, congratulations on getting the number 1 pick.
Dude, what an amazing Sunday for my Bears. Number 1 pick. Terrible season. I don't even care.
And Lovie Smith gave it to you?
He did. Put him in the Hall of Honor. I'm serious. God, only coach in Bears history to guide him to a Super Bowl and guide him to a number 1 pick. And they got the most cap space in the offseason. So that's Fornelli. Where are you?
We lost him.
Can we commiserate and celebrate together? Where are you? Find me, fellow Bears fan.
We lost him in late 2022.
Come on now.
Yeah, because of the conductor of the Illinois train. Oh my, who was that?
That's right.
And I know what some people are thinking. Hold up. I just saw him on CBS Sports HQ literally yesterday. And I'd be like, that was a replay.
Okay.
We lost Fornelli late 2022. He had a good run though, He had a good run.
Subscribe to this podcast and the Cover 3 podcast while you're at it. Thank you.
But don't be expecting to hear Fornelli on it.
Shouts to Chip Patterson.
Shouts to Chip Patterson. He's going to have an expanded role now. This is not the way Chip wanted to get an expanded role. Nobody wanted this. But you take opportunities wherever you can get them under whatever circumstances. And so I wish him luck. If you're not subscribed, go subscribe. Apple, Spotify over at Apple. Get in those comments. Write a review. There's more of us than there are of them. It's a fact. We're going to talk to you again on Wednesday. We'll see if my mic's together. Fingers crossed. Oh, by the way, I should have just said bye.
Oh, we were done.
By the way, okay, so I've heavy loads of Gorilla Glue in my office because I've been trying to deal with all this stuff in my studio here. Guess what I found today? See if you can see this. See this here? That's my son gluing Diego Maradona and Ronaldo. They're glued. They're now super glued. And he broke Neymar. Just completely broke Neymar.
Oh my gosh.
Neymar's dead, like Fernelli. So now I gotta get Glooby gone. Because Diego Maradona is stuck. And that's no way to go through life.
All right.
We'll talk to you Wednesday.